Hey everybody, it's Anastasia, and it's super early in the morning, but everyone's being quiet, so ooh, I just shook everything. Everyone's being quiet, so I decided it's the perfect time to record. So today's episode is gonna be titled Story Time with Anastasia, because boy do I have a story for you. This goes all the way back to when I was like 8 or 9. I was really young, a tiny, small thing. Okay, so we lived right next to a park, but we weren't allowed to play at this park because it wasn't exactly the safest of neighborhoods. I grew up on the north side of St. Louis, so, things aren't exactly safe all the time. But I wasn't one to follow rules very well. I never have been, and especially when I was with my older cousin, Cece. My older cousin, Cece, she didn't listen very well to anyone. It didn't matter if it was her parents, their teachers, anyone like that. So Cece and I had just gotten off of school, and we were like, oh, let's go play at the park. And before I get into what we did at the park, I'd just like to express the fact that that day it was show and tell at my school, and my mom gave me these really pretty like glass figurines to show, and they were really pretty, and she made me promise not to break them, so I promised I would be super careful with them and not break them. Back to the story. So we were at the park. And I was playing. We played for about an hour and a half, and then it started raining really hard out of nowhere. And anyone who lives in St. Louis or lives around that bi-state area knows that it will be sunny and then all of a sudden pouring in literally less than 5 seconds. So that happened, and we had to run home, and we banged on my door for about 10 minutes, and no one was there. So, oops, we had to go to her house, and her house has a big gate in front of it. And if no one's home, then they lock it. Well, her door was always open because they didn't actually have a lock on their door, but they had a lock on the gate. And the gate was pretty high, but you could climb it if you, knew what you were doing. So we decided we're going to climb over this gate, and we're going to get into the house because it's raining really hard. Problem, the gate was 7 feet high, and I was 8, so I was around 4'2", 4'3", and I was carrying this heavy book bag because it was right after school. So my cousin decided to take my book bag that had the glass figurines in it and throw it over the gate. I freaked out, but whatever, we were at the house. So we run into the house, we get all done and all this other stuff. It was terrible. We were wet. Not to mention, I had wanted to go home 20 minutes beforehand because I really had to go to the bathroom. And I went on the bathroom on myself. And it wasn't just number one. No, I pooped myself. It was a terrible time. We got into the house. I'm like, hey, can you give me extra clothes? She's like, yeah, fine. I'm like, can you give me extra underwear too? She's like, what, why? And I'm like, because my underwear is also wet, duh. And then she's like, okay, fine. Problem, Cece was older than I was, and I was always a small kid, but she was really big, so her underwear did not fit me. So she had to get me her little sister, who was like a year and a half younger than me, but she wasn't at the same school as us. I don't know why. I think she might have been special. Looking back onto it, she did a lot of stuff that was weird. She'd always walk up on her tiptoes, no matter what she was doing. And she didn't talk to people. She, talked away from people. If she wanted to talk to you, she would go up to you and then turn around and then talk. I think that's, autistic or something, isn't it? Yeah. Anyway, we kept talking, and, I got dressed, and, she gave me a tank top, and the tank top was, huge because it was for her, not for me, and it was a regular tank top up here, but it went down to my knees, so I didn't really need pants. It was just a dress. And we were like, okay, now it's time to go home. So I was like, oh, my parents should be home by now. Let's just go home. And I walked in the rain back to my house. We had an umbrella this time, but my feet were still like wet because I didn't ask for socks for some reason. And we got to the house, and there were police cars all over the outside of my house. I'm like, oh, what happened? So I go in, and my mom's like, where the hell were you? We called the police. And I'm like, oh. Because we were at the park for well over 2 hours. And we were at Cece's house for about an hour and a half. So, oops. Anyway, I then realized that I left my book bag with the glass figurines in it at Cece's house. So I ran out of the door, down the steps, out the street, down the 2 blocks that was separated my house and Cece's, and ran into her backyard, again, jumping a fence. Terrible. It's wet. I slipped. I fell twice. I got like all cuts and bruises on my legs. I got back. I like got in there, and then I gave zero shits about my book bag. I ripped it open again, actually ripped it. Like the part that the zipper was on was like split, and it was like, ugh. But anyway, the glass figurines were thankfully fine. I was like, yes, I got in, and then I like put the glass figurines in my shirt, and I was in like the 3rd grade, right? So I was good. I had an actual bra, so I just kind of like put them underneath the elastic, and I climbed over the fence. I got back. I put them in my hands because I didn't want them to fall out, and then I ran to my house. Anyone who knows me knows I am one of the most clumsy people in the face of the world. So I tripped over the sidewalk and fell with them in my hands. They shattered and broke. There was glass in my hands, blood everywhere. I freaked out. I ran to the house. I cried. I was like, Mom, I broke them. I promised I wouldn't, but I broke them. And she just started screaming and screaming and told me to go to my room. She didn't exactly hear what I was talking about, because that's the thing about my mom. When she's mad, she doesn't really hear very well. So we got into the house. Well, I got in my room, and my hands were bleeding. And I was like crying so hard. And I fell asleep because like I was emotionally exhausted. So I was like, whatever, I'm just going to go to sleep. I woke up the next morning, and my hands were bloody and green and like infected, and I freaked out. I ran into the kitchen, and I was like, I ran all the way to my mom's room, which was through the kitchen. And then I was like, Mom, help, I don't know what to do. And she was sleeping because she had worked overnights, and I was, waking her up, and she just kind of yelled at me, I'm too tired for this shit, and rolled over and like didn't even look at my hands. And I was like, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? So I ran into the bathroom, and I'm like, okay, what do we learn? You're supposed to disinfect wounds. So what I did was I took a bottle of bleach and poured it on my hands. And then I took toilet paper and wrapped it around my hands. I had mummy hands. They were big clubs. I didn't know what I was doing, and it still hurt super bad. And I was like, okay, now what do I do? What do I do? So I went downstairs. My house was a 2-family flat, right? And then on the upstairs was me, my mom, my dad, and my sister. But on the bottom was my uncle and my aunt. And I went downstairs, and went to my Aunt Joyce. I'm like, what do I do? What do I do? And she looked at me, and she said, you are so just, what are you doing? And I'm like, I don't know. So what she did was she like unwrapped my hands. There was still toilet paper sticking to my hands. She had to pick it all off. It was stuck. It was bloody. It was blah, 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 blah. It was bad. And then she put like alcohol on it, which burned even worse than the bleach for some reason. I don't know why. And I was like crying and screaming, and my uncle came in and popped me in the mouth. It was like, there's no time for this. What are you doing? And I'm like, I'm sorry, it hurts. And he's like, yeah, be a man. And I'm like, okay, I'll be a man. And then I'm standing there, little 8-year-old me, with tears in my eyes and just like trying to bite my lip because I don't want to scream and get popped in the mouth again. So I'm like, okay, whatever. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? I ran down the stairs. I was like, okay, what do I do? Because I was in the basement at this point. I'm like, okay, my hands are all okay now. And I look down, and they're still bleeding. And I'm like, okay, we're supposed to put bandages on it. So I went back upstairs. I was in the basement because I was playing with toys. There was toys in the basement. I don't know why. The more I think about it, the more I think my family just hated me. But like, yeah, I ran back upstairs. I'm like, okay, Joyce, what do I do? And she wrapped my hands in bandages, and then she noticed there was a piece of glass actively sticking out of my arm. I don't know if you can still see it. There's a scar there. Don't mind that. I got bored in class, but like, there's a scar right there. Yeah. And I was like, okay, what do I do? And saw this like piece of glass, like that big, sticking out of my arm. She's like, is there glass in your hands? And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, Eileen, you're so stupid. And I'm like, oh, what? I'm stupid. What did I do? So she had to unwrap my hands, throw all those bandages away, and then take little pieces of tweezers and pick all the glass out of my hands. She finished that. She wrapped them back up. I went back upstairs, and there was a police officer in my apartment. I'm like, who? What? My mom started screaming at me, where did you go? Where did you go? And I'm like, I was downstairs getting glass picked out of my hand. And there was a lot of stuff going on. They were questioning why I wasn't wearing my own clothing, and it was like a lot of stuff. And at some point they asked had I been molested, and I was like, no, what is that? And just a lot of stuff happened that day. I cried. Literally all I wanted that day was to go home, eat some cereal, watch Arthur, and go to sleep. But no, I had to have like the worst day of my life. But yeah, it was terrible, and probably the worst time I've ever had. So yeah, that's the most embarrassing story that I've told anyone. And yeah, now you all know that. Thanks for watching this story time with Anastasia. Leave a like, comment, what is the most embarrassing thing that has ever happened to you? And leave a subscribe so you can see more videos like this, or makeup videos, DIY videos. I do kind of everything because I'm just starting out and I don't know what to do with my life, so I'm just trying everything. Alright, I'll see you guys later. Yeah. Do all the regular YouTube stuff. Boy!